Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. Today we're going to be taking a look at Hex Purge. Hex Purge is one of the new hexes, one of the three new hexes, the tri-hexes, that comes with the Warlock. Hex Purge is kind of interesting. It seems to be kind of designed around the idea of like, fro- um, of like exploding arrow or freezing arrow. So how does it work? Well, basically what happens is you use this ability, and when you use Hex Purge, it imbues your weapon sort of like enchant in a way. And you actually see that imbuement, like your weapon turns green, as you can clearly see once you Hex Purge. Now, when you hit a target with the Hex Purge activated, which lasts for a pretty decent amount of time, as you can see, 456 seconds, which is a pretty long duration. When you hit a target, they become hexed. The hex appears above their head and is very obvious. Now, one of the things that I wanted to test when I first started checking out the hexes was I was curious whether or not, like, curses overwrote the hexes. Like, do you get to use curses and hexes at the same time? Well, the answer is yes. You can use curses and hexes at the same time. So here I have a couple of monsters that are cursed and hexed at the same time, so you can clearly see that they have both the curse and the hex on them simultaneously. So you don't have to worry about the hexes overwriting your curses. Now, every time you hex them, they have a chance to explode with this particular curse, and they dish out magic damage to everything nearby in a radius. And the interesting thing about that is that, well, the radius is going to hit everything within that circle. And you can potentially hit all the monsters within that radius, and you can do pretty much a massive amount of damage by causing some chain reaction explosions. Similar to Freezing Arrow and Exploding Arrow, though, the way that it works is probably not going to be very effective versus bosses. Mainly because this type of effect seems to rely on clustering monsters and having the explosions deal a massive amount of damage across the board. Even fully synergized, which I'm kind of blocking it. Let me look over here and we can look at this one. Even fully synergized, we only have 1,603 damage on this particular ability, which is kind of low in comparison to other abilities that are similar to this. If I was running a freezing arrow Amazon, or if I was running an exploding arrow Amazon, I would probably be closer to like 4,000 or 5,000 damage explosion per shot, and then I would be getting multiple shots from piercing. With this particular ability, the damage isn't quite as high, but it is in addition to whatever other damage you're already doing. So it's kind of like adding Freezing Arrow onto another ability. Like if you could add Freezing Arrow onto Multi-Shot, for example. That would be pretty cool, right? Well, technically you can kind of do that with this character. You could actually have a character that has a like exploding arrow with Demon Machine, utilizing the damage from it, and then using Hex Purge, and then getting like multiple explosions per shot, which is pretty darn cool. Hex Purge is also synergistic with other abilities too, which basically means that you can use it as a synergy for things like Cleave. It's a synergy for Cleave, and it's also a synergy for Eldritch Blast. So it has like I think it's three synergies, because it's also a synergy for Hexbane. So it does make a really interesting one just simply to use on a lot of builds, because it's going to be a synergy for, at the very least, Cleave, Eldritch Blast, and Hexbane. So a lot of characters are probably going to have it for use on their characters. Now, the way that this ability works is that it explodes, and once it explodes, it will take the ability off the character. So once you have the explosion happen, it loses their hex, and then you have to re-hex them. Increasing the level of the ability increases the number of explosions before the hex is removed. At level like 1, it's basically one explosion and then it's gone. At level I can't remember the exact structure of when it starts to get more explosions, but as you can see at level 27 right now, it currently has 3 explosions. So it'll explode 3 times before it leaves the targets. The radius of it is only 4 yards, which is actually kind of small. It's about the same explosion radius of a fireball. It's the same explosion radius of a freezing arrow, the same exploding radius of an exploding arrow shot. So it's very similar in a lot of ways to Exploding Arrow or Freezing Arrow. And it can be utilized across multiple characters, like for instance, or multiple monsters. You can use something like Cleave, for instance, which has has a pretty nice radius, and you can basically hex multiple monsters at the same time with this ability, causing multiple explosions to happen. Like, for instance, if I were to go into this fight and let the monsters surround me, and then use this, I can cause multiple of these hexes to appear on the targets, dealing multiple explosions to multiple monsters nearby, which is really, really quite powerful. On top of that, it also has some additional benefits. It gives you 254% bonus attack rating, which is really nice for just about any melee build. Most of the hexes give attack rating, though. Pretty much all of them do, so it's not something that's unique. What is unique to Hex Purge, however, is the 30% increased attack speed right here, which is very nice if you're trying to do an attack speed build. So if you're trying to hit some sort of break point and you just really need a large amount of attack speed, Hex Purge can come in handy for this particular purpose. All in all, Hex Purge is one of those odd type abilities, which I'm not exactly sure you would ever build completely around Hex Purge. But you can definitely get some very good like AoE damage from Hex Purge, causing the explosions and getting like a feedback loop through like a big pack of monsters. In fact, having the monsters surround you tends to be a really good way. Also, Hex Purge could work very well on a character that is using a bow. If you happen to be using Mirage Strike down here, Mirrored Blades also works with bows, and it would work surprisingly well with Hex Purge as well. Although I think Hex Bane would be a better choice for bows. They both technically work, and you have to build both of them anyway. So let me kind of demonstrate that here really quickly with a bow that we have on hand. I got a couple bows. Let's use Witch Wild String just for the awe factor of it, because it's kind of neat. And grab some arrows. And I'm going to show you how you can potentially use Hex Purge and the bow together to get some very interesting effects. Now, first off, when you use Mirrored Blades, it actually fires 5 arrows. And because the Witch Wild String has Magic Arrow on it, you actually get 5 Magic Arrows. And you're also getting the Purge effect on shot as well. So you basically get to have the Purge effect, you get to have the Magic Arrow effect, all of the above. And then you need to build some piercing so you can obviously pierce through to the other target behind you. But as you can see, it's quite an effective little combo with the hexes. And honestly, any of the hexes would be really good with this combination, but I think Hex Bane might be the most effective in the long run. No matter what, though, you're going to end up with Hex Purge at least a little bit, because Hex Bane is a synergy for Hex Purge, and Hex Purge is a synergy for Hex Bane. So if you build the hexes, you usually end up building into one or the other and can swap back and forth as you need to, with Hex Bane being the one that's better for single target damage, and Hex Purge being the one that's better for AoE damage. I really kind of like both of them, and they both honestly really work quite well. As for the synergies for this particular ability, they're not really that important. I hate to say it. Hex Bane and Eldritch Blast are the ones that give damage. Sigil of Death gives chance to erupt per level, which really isn't necessary if you fully go into it, because it already has like a 71, 81% chance to erupt maxed out. And the Eldritch Blast duration per level isn't really needed either, because technically with this particular purge, it removes itself as soon as it gets 3 explosions. So you don't even really need the duration either. You just want the damage. So all you really need to do is Eldritch Blast, which also happens to give the duration, and Hexbane, which gives more damage as well. And you can ignore the Sigil Death if you don't want it. Trying to think like anything else that you could potentially do with this, but like there's tons of fun builds. You could use Echoing Strike with it, you could use Cleave with it, you could use Mirrored Blades with it. Mirrored Blades is actually a really good one for basically any character, because it's only a 20-point investment, even if you are a summoner, or like a particularly not a melee or range character. Mirrored Blades offers a very interesting opportunity for any character to have an offensive capability, where you can basically just drop 20 points into this and have the ability to fire a bow from the back line, which is really freaking cool. And it also works with like Demon Machine too. Like you could potentially use Demon Machine and you could get the multiple exploding arrows as well. Combining that together with the Purge, of course, and getting all of the nice explosions. Now, of course, I'm not even built into it, right? I don't even have it maxed out. I don't have it like specifically set up for this particular purpose. And I think that's one of the things is that once you actually do get it all set up specifically for what you're trying to do, synergize it out, get the appropriate equipment, the negative magic res, and so forth and so on that you need. Um, both Hexbane and Hex Purge could be absolutely amazing for like build status. You could definitely build entire characters around them and set up like really fun characters. I think that's pretty much it for Hex Purge. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals joining. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And as always, keep watching.